evening is Living with a Person who is Dyslexic, our story. My husband Harley was assessed as having dyslexia 2 years ago at the age of 53. I'd like to share a story with you in the hopes that by doing so it may encourage some of you or family members, bring to you a sense of hope, of not being alone, and of knowing that in time situations can improve or at least be adapted to. Before I continue, I'd like to give you the Webster's Dictionary definitions of what disability is and the definition for dyslexia. Disability. Disability is a noun, the condition of being unable to perform as a consequence of physical or mental unfitness. Reading disability, for example, hearing impairment. In the context of health experience, a disability is any restriction or lack resulting from an impairment of ability to perform an activity in the manner or within the range considered normal for a human being. And the definition for dyslexia is a noun, and the definition is impaired ability to learn or read. The first time that the word dyslexia was first used was approximately 1887. People who experience reading and or writing difficulty without being otherwise intellectually disabled are said to suffer from dyslexia. A dyslexic is a person who has a reading disability known as dyslexia. Studying dyslexia is very valuable for understanding intelligence and creativity. Dyslexia illustrates the power of inborn wiring of the brain in developing mental skills. At the same time, it can show how inborn limitations can be overcome by using the compensatory power of the brain. Dyslexia is caused by an inability to handle linguistic information in visual form. There is also a form of dyslexia that relates to the ability to read standard analog clocks, which is a rotational positioning dyslexia, as opposed to the symmetric dyslexia found with dyslexics that have reading and writing problems. A full 5 to 15% of the population can be diagnosed as suffering from various degrees of dyslexia. Its main manifestation is a difficulty in developing reading skills in elementary school children. Those difficulties result from reduced ability to link up visual symbols with sounds. In the past, dyslexia was mistakenly thought to have a motivational background, meaning the child was just being lazy and inattentive. It was interesting recently, I also heard that there's another form of dyslexia which is to do with math, and I believe it's called dyscalculia. Let's do more research on that. So back to our story. Harley and I were raised in the small northern community of BC community of Terrace, population of approximately 15,000. We both attended school there, were married there, had our 3 children there. It wasn't apparent to me that Harley struggled out of the ordinary, but the first evidence I recall was I noticed he avoided reading. He only did so if he absolutely had to do with work, for example, shop manuals or hot rod magazines. He loves cars, and there are lots of pictures in the magazine. When we were first married, Harley was in his second year apprenticeship for heavy-duty mechanics. It was a heavy course with tons of material to read. I was able to help Harley in his studies by reading the many chapters that he was required to when he was taking his apprenticeship schooling. He found it extremely difficult trying to read, and then he'd get to the bottom of the page trying to remember what he had just read. He applied himself as hard as he could, did extremely well in shop, that was in the hands-on and practical work, but struggled with the written work, reading, comprehension, and the exams. He did pass, and he was very relieved to do so. He confirmed as soon as I was writing our story that his challenges with the written word have definitely held him back from his promotions as foreman, etc., as there is a lot of paperwork required administratively in such positions. His organizational skills, independent working ability, and ability to be in charge of other workers was excellent. We even tried to take an Open Learning Institute course in reading a language skill, but it soon proved to be far more academic than real-life application, which is what we were seeking to upgrade Harley to. We both read a little book entitled The 5 Love Languages, and it was clear that I am a word person, and Harley an action or hands-on person. From having read this little book, it helped us both to realize that we are indeed all created and process information quite differently. While I miss being able to carry on debates, conversations at length, I'm sure that Harley longed for peace and more quiet. After Harley received his assessment of dyslexia, we began seeking to discover how to determine how he processes in order that he could improve his reading and processing of the information that he had just read. Memory retention for him is a great challenge, and yet he can take apart an entire vehicle engine and put the many hundreds of pieces back together again by sight, referring to manuals as required, particularly the pictures and diagrams in the manual. He is determined to continue trying to accomplish a very difficult course he is currently enrolled in, and determined to succeed in it. We now know, however, though, that it requires a different testing situation, that is, being able to have an oral test and someone writing down the answers for him, as when he is nervous, he will often transpose things. For myself, I feel completely helpless when I see Hardy struggling and working so hard to absorb what he's reading or studying. When I try to help him, what I think is clear and obvious explanation may not come across clear to him. I actually feel guilty that I can read well and do well on my own exams. Somehow, by doing well, I feel I'm betraying him in a way. It is really quite curious mixture of emotions that one experiences. My level of frustration in our schooling system is very high, as I believe that they have not done enough over the years to come to terms with helping students of varying degrees and varying needs, from those with easily recognized physical challenges to non-visible challenges. How it saddened me the other day as my granddaughter and I were reading a Where's Waldo book that is a real Victoria book. And she struggled to read the items to find in the back legend. And she said in a sad, exasperated voice, "Grandma, I wish I could read better." When Hardy and I work together at home, for example, doing house renovations, we often enter into conflict as I try to explain my thoughts on the outcome, i.e., what I perceive the end result will be. This seems to agitate Hardy as he needs to work methodically, completing step one, going on to the next step, and then discovering the possible problem as he works through the steps. This has led us to many arguments as I try to paint a picture for him beforehand, often resorting to physically showing him what I mean or drawing a diagram. It doesn't help that both he and I have a southern streak in us, him Irish and me Portuguese. We have 3 wonderful adult children, a daughter Samantha who is now 31, a second daughter Karina who is 28, and a son Sean who is 22. We are also blessed with 4 beautiful grandchildren. Our oldest daughter was developmentally delayed, and this was recognized between the young age of 3.5 and 4 as her speech was delayed. When she was 6 years old, she was assessed at the diagnostic center of the Vancouver Children's Hospital as being borderline mentally handicapped. She has no apparent visible physical challenges, but it was evident that she struggled in school academically and also fit in socially. They never reassessed her, nor did they ever mention dyslexia, but that she was learning disabled. This allowed her to receive teaching assistance, although I'm not convinced that they ever discovered the way that she herself processed, therefore empowering her to learn to her own full potential. She became increasingly frustrated with school, and at the age of 16, when she was in grade 10, she quit school because they had already repeated her 3 years. Most recently, after 2 years of fighting for a proper assessment, our 10-year-old granddaughter was assessed by School District 68 as being deemed to require an IEP, an independent educational plan. She is now in grade 5, reading skills continue to slide, and is barely able to read at grade 2 reading level. I feel that what is being done for her thus far has not addressed the fact that she is evidencing signs of also having some form of dyslexia. This both her mother and I have mentioned to her learning assistance teacher. The IEP has essentially cut her grade 5 workload in half. They have not determined how she processes, nor have they explored the reason for the reading comprehension challenge. She does receive learning assistance weekly. However, I dare not see that this is helping her at all with reading and comprehension skills. While in some countries such as England, where the government has actually legislated the right of individuals to receive the assistance that they require to develop and lead a full life, both in school and in the workplace, we in Canada have a very long way to go. Here we are now onto our 3rd generation in our own family, and the children are not failing the system. Rather, I believe our school system continues to fail our children. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a proud dyslexic. I think you should check out VIDyslexiaAssociation.com.